2 years ago, 1.5 years ago. That was about the military cuts of President Trump. Planned in Europe, didn't actually happen. You said that, country didn't work, it didn't work. And yes, tonight. So, and you retired as a general, as a commanding general for Western Europe in 2018, and then joined the CEPA. We didn't say it in the invite, it means the Center for European Policy Analysis based in Washington, but you are based in the West End, which is much nicer, of course. And now, these days, you are probably one of the most popular speakers around the Ukraina crisis. That's because you had these evenings in the Wirtschaftsclub before. And I saw you on Bild-Zeitung Frankfurt Allgemeine many times in the news and television, and if you couldn't get enough tonight, you can see him again tonight at Maybrit Illner at 9 p.m. I think it was.
No, 10:30.
10:30, so but the recording is at 9, right? So we're very proud, and I mean that seriously, honestly, that we have you here tonight. Ben, the floor is yours.
If I speak like this, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, good.
What?
Okay, I'm going to go about 20, 25 minutes maximum, okay? And then they'll bring out the next course.
No, it's directly questions after you talk.
As I said, we'll do Q&A immediately after I finish speaking. I at least wanted you to have some soup first so that you would be able to listen for a little while. I come from Florida, North Florida, Tallahassee, which is the Hauptstadt, as many of you know. So my English is not exactly the perfect English that you may have learned in school. So I'll go slowly so you can calibrate your ears. When we do have questions, please feel free if you want to ask a question in German. I can normalerweise 75% verstehen, aber Alexandra can alles verstehen und viele Befehle geben. So, there's a lot of witnesses. I can say a lot of things here now. So, I'm an optimist, or somebody corrected me tonight that I'm a optorealist. Yeah, so I learned a new English word tonight, optorealist. An optimist who still understands the challenges and the issues and that nothing's for sure. Okay, so I accept that new title. I believe that by the end of this year, September, Ukraine is going to push Russian forces all the way back to the 23 February line. By the end of September, all the way back to 23 February. And that Crimea and Donbass, that's going to take longer. That's going to be probably the result of a combination of military action, but a negotiated settlement at some port. It may take 2, 3, 4 years. I'm not sure, because there are a lot of other factors will impact on this. But and I'll explain why I'm a optorealist in a moment, but I wanted to set the context first of everything I say. This is how I think it turns out. If, with a big fat caveat, if the United States, if Germany, if the UK, if all of us stick together and we deliver everything that we said we were going to do, if we keep our foot on the gas, then actually the balance of power is going to transition to the advantage of Ukraine. Probably by the end of July and by the end of August, the Russians will be out of gas. And then you're going to see the Ukrainians go into the offense. And that's how I think it's going to play out. Now, I will be happy to come back, Thomas, if you'll allow me, in September and explain how I was so wrong, okay? Because you will all know how wrong I was on my projection, okay? And I'm accustomed to admitting when I'm wrong. It happens quite a bit, so I'm not too proud to admit when I get it wrong. But we know from history that war is a test of will and it's a test of logistics. It's clear that the Ukrainians have the advantage when it comes to willpower, and they are defending their homeland. I mean, literally, you've all seen on YouTube or Twitter or on the news, a soldier is saying, my family lives right there. So, I mean, this is very real for them. Whereas the Russian soldiers, many of them conscripts, come from places outside of Moscow, outside of St. Petersburg. In fact, interesting, there's very, very few soldiers, Russian soldiers, that actually come from Moscow or St. Petersburg. They come from other ethnic groups all over the rest of Russia. So the Russians have a serious manpower shortage, which you would not think intuitively that they would have a manpower problem, but they do. If you remember, when things started going bad in early March, they sent out a request for Syrian volunteers. I thought, what? That, to me, was the first red flag, that they had to ask for Syrian volunteers to come join the fight. And they have decided so far not to mobilize any of their reserves. This is obviously a political decision, because then the president of the Russian Federation would have to explain to his people why this special military operation to denazify Ukraine needed more troops. That would be difficult. The purpose of this special military operation, of course, started off was to denazify Ukraine. But it has turned into something else. And the real purpose, I think, has been revealed to all of us. It's to destroy and eliminate Ukraine as a state, to eliminate the idea of Ukraine as a state. That's why you see absolute total destruction of cities. He has no interest in rebuilding Mariupol. He has no interest in rebuilding Berdansk. He has no interest in rebuilding Kharkiv. It's absolute total medieval destruction. Get rid of all symbols of Ukraine, the language, everything. And that's the mindset. But you had to have some kind of reason to go in initially, and it was to denazify, or NATO was threatening us, all kinds of other fairy tales that have come out of the Kremlin here over the last few years. So when we talk about a test of will, what are the Ukrainian soldiers fighting for? And what are the Russian soldiers fighting for? And who are they? You can see who has the most will. And Napoleon said, the moral is to the physical as 3 is to 1. In other words, the moral component, the human dimension of warfare, is so much more important than the equipment and even the numbers. So there are so many examples in history of where smaller forces, maybe even with less modern equipment, were successful in defeating a much larger, more modern opponent. Think of the American Revolution. But also think of the Taliban. Think of Vietnam. So it's, what are you fighting for, is what matters. So I think in the will, it's Ukraine. Now, certainly President Putin has demonstrated he has will. He doesn't care how many troops he loses, how many civilians are killed. It absolutely does not matter. So he has willpower. But one of the themes that maybe we could explore a little bit this evening is, how much support does he have? How long can he keep doing what he's doing? The second test is logistics. And when I mean logistics, I'm talking about ammunition, fuel, all the things required for an Army or Air Force or Navy to fight, but also the artillery, the weapons, the drones, all of that. Right now, of course, Russia has the advantage in artillery and rocket launchers. They have more, and they seemingly have endless amounts of ammunition. I mean, they're just shooting artillery all day, all night. I believe they are in their last offensive, that they cannot continue this beyond the summer. They probably will have artillery ammunition until we're all dead, but they can't keep doing what they're doing. I believe that based on all the different reports I see. I'm talking to people in Ukraine. I've talked to former retired military ambassadors, people that pay attention to this. And then I have some experience, and it doesn't seem to me that they can keep doing what they're trying to do right now. From a manpower standpoint, from an ammunition standpoint. I mean, many of you are in business, I guess all of you actually are in business if you're in the Wirtschaftsclub, to keep vehicles running in difficult conditions. You have to have a supply chain. I mean, you have to do maintenance. You have to take care of these vehicles that are carrying heavy loads in very difficult terrain. It's very hard to do. The Russian system does not have that. They're not designed to do that. They're designed to fight inside Russia. They're not designed to invade Ukraine. So I don't see them being able to sustain this. But still, for the next 3 or 4 weeks, it's going to be very bad in Ukraine. They are going to get pounded, pounded, pounded. But I say 3 weeks, 4 weeks, because I believe the weight of all of the artillery and the rockets that the US, the UK, the Poland, Norway, Czechia, that we're providing, the full weight is going to start being felt by the Russians. I mean, so far, think about this. When you start thinking, oh, it's not going so well, you know, we don't see as many videos of Russian tanks on fire. There's little successes and failures around this city of Severodonetsk. The Ukrainians have done that without the benefit of all the big stuff that we are starting to finally provide. So they've done that without American, Polish, British artillery rocket launchers. It's just now starting to get there. And it takes time to train people how to use it. I think, middle of July, you're going to start seeing a different story. The way you defeat the enemy's artillery and rockets is with your own artillery and rockets. This is why the Ukrainians have said, please give us artillery. Please give us rocket launchers. That's what they need. That's what they need. There is no magic weapon. They have to be able to hit the Russian artillery and the Russian rockets, make them move or destroy them. So finally, the administration has done that. The UK is doing that. And actually, Germany is doing that. Tonight, as we sit here enjoying the generosity of Thomas Kramer, actually, I guess you all paid for your own dinner. So enjoying each other's generosity. There are Ukrainian soldiers in Oberstein, which is the German Bundeswehr's artillery school. And they are learning how to use the Panzerhaubitze 2000 and German rocket launchers. And by the end of June, these Ukrainian soldiers will be going with their Panzerhaubitze 2000 Richtung Ukraina. Okay, so this is what's going on all over the place. All of these things will be really start to take effect in July. So this is why I am optimistic. This is why I think that Ukrainians, they have the will, and the logistical situation is improving. Now, we do have 2 or 3 big problems that will wreck my analysis, okay? I've mentioned one about logistics. The distribution network inside Ukraine is weak. I mean, you understand that all the nations have agreed we'll provide this stuff, but we'll only get it to Poland, or we'll get it to Slovakia, or we'll get it to Romania. And then from there, the Ukrainians have to get it and take it all the way to the other end of their country, which is several hundred kilometers. You know, Ukraine's twice the size of Germany. So to get it from vicinity Lviv all the way to the east side of the Dnieper River, that's very difficult. And the transportation network was not designed to handle that much traffic, so much heavy weight, large 50, 60, 70-ton vehicles, hundreds of thousands of tons of ammunition, and so on. So they weren't organized to do that. So we have a choke point, actually. Fortunately, the Russians have not been able to destroy this. I mean, this should be target number 1, is destroying the network, the logistical network but they don't have the ability to do that, actually. We do know in terms of ammunition, I mentioned that the Russians have used up, they have apparently endless amounts of regular artillery ammunition, but they have used up more than half of their precision munitions, the missiles that can hit a very specific target, okay? They've used up more than half of them. They've used them against hospitals, apartment buildings, theaters. The good news is, though, they've used up more than half, and they can't replace those because of sanctions, because some of the critical components for these missiles come from other countries. Sanctions have stopped that. So this is a good one of the good benefits of the sanctions. The second challenge that we have, and I've alluded to it in the beginning, is if we get weary of this, if we're not willing to stick with Ukraine, if we're not willing to deliver all the things that they need, if we're not committed to helping them win, and we can debate that tonight about, first of all, does everybody agree what win means? And if you do, is that the right outcome? Okay. But if we're not committed to doing that, and when you hear heads of government or distinguished people say, we need a ceasefire, all that does is prolong it. When somebody, a president of a country or a famous diplomat says, we need a ceasefire, that tells the Russians, okay, they're getting weak. They're getting tired of it, just like we knew they would. Just like we knew it, the West would lose interest in this because gas is going up and food prices are going up and people want to go on summer holiday and this is hard, okay? That's what they're counting on. And when we say ceasefire, I mean, that sounds good. Thank God, stop the killing. What ceasefire means in Ukraine, that means everything that Russia has already captured gets locked in. That becomes the new facts on the ground, okay? Which means Ukraine is totally wrecked. All of their seaports other than Odessa, which is blockaded right now, all of the seaports destroyed, under Russian control. They cannot export grain, which millions of people in Africa and the Middle East are counting on. Their export, they can't do it. So, of course, this is part of the design. So best case in the world for Russia is ceasefire. And then Putin can say, I did it. I've ruined Ukraine. They're a wreck. Look, we've liberated all of Donetsk and Luhansk. Look what we've done. That's why I think ceasefire is a terrible, and I guarantee you there's nobody in Ukraine that wants a ceasefire. And they're the ones paying the price. I spoke with a Ukrainian journalist this morning, who I've known for a few years. She lives in Kyiv. And I said, how's your family? They're safe? She goes, well, my mother died back in March. And I thought, oh, my God, her apartment must have been hit. So she said, no. She was terribly ill, but because of the rockets hitting Kyiv, she could not go to the hospital, and she died at home. You think that lady is ready for a ceasefire? You think she's ready to go ahead and say, okay, go ahead, keep it? Absolutely not. There's nobody in Ukraine that wants that. Now, I think what President Biden has said is right. He said, ultimately, this is the decision of Ukrainians. I mean, they're the ones that are literally paying the price. So how much are they willing to sacrifice? How long are they willing to go? In large part is the decision of the Ukrainians. So that's going to be a part of it. This is not something for Berlin or Paris or London or Washington to decide. It's up to the Ukrainians. But I believe this is so important. This is not, and it's not just about Ukraine. This is about everything that everybody in this room grew up with in a world where you have rules, you have laws, you have international law, you have some stability so that people can make money, you can go to work, you can, all the things that we kind of, frankly, take for granted, that's at risk. I mean, if you think that President Putin will stop after this, we're not paying attention. I mean, we know who he is. We have figured this out. Now, a couple more points that I would want to address, and then I will look forward to any questions. This helps me, by the way, when I get challenged, or it helps me be more clear, and I love hearing how people think about things. I'm always often stunned when I realize not everybody agrees with me. So it's useful to remember that. I imagine that the number one or number two issue on the front of your mind is, what if it goes nuclear? What if Putin wants to use a nuclear weapon? If my prediction is accurate and Russian forces start getting pushed way back, and it looks like they're going to lose, and I think they should, by the way, they should be defeated, what might he use a nuclear weapon? Of course, I don't know for sure, but there's no doubt they have thousands of nuclear warheads. They have more than anybody in the world. And they practice with these things. Every scenario in all of their exercises includes a nuclear strike on Warsaw or on Thailand or something like that, okay? So they have a process, they know how to do it. So there is absolutely a possibility of it, and I take that very serious. I also think it's extremely unlikely, because I don't believe there's any advantage for the Kremlin to use a nuclear weapon. In fact, I think their nuclear weapons are most effective when they don't use them. Because when he doesn't use them, that's all people can talk about is, oh my God, what if he uses a nuclear weapon? And that's why even the White House, and I'm very proud of my president and what they have accomplished, what they've been doing. Best diplomatic effort I've seen from the United States probably since 1995 in the Dayton Peace Accord. I mean, I've never seen us do this much work with our allies. That's very hard. But I think the president and the White House, they're wrong. We exaggerate the risk of the Kremlin using nuclear weapons. When you see the president go, no World War III, well, nobody wants that. But I don't think it's going to happen, because I don't think Putin would use a nuclear weapon. But because they are so concerned about it, and Putin knows that, we keep saying what we're not going to do, and that gives him, he sees what he can do. And so the result of that has been we've kind of been half-stepping a little bit on giving, okay, finally after 100 days, we'll give a rocket launcher, but we won't give you the best rocket because you might shoot it into Russia. Hell yeah, they're going to shoot it into Russia. Of course they will, because there are airplanes taking off from a Russian airfield that are murdering innocent Ukrainian civilians inside Europe. Of course they would hammer it if they could, okay? But I understand the administration and all the other governments, by the way, including Germany, why we don't want it to escalate. So there's a tension here. And obviously I could be wrong, but the likelihood of using a nuclear weapon, I think, is so low because there is no advantage. I believe that if he uses a nuclear weapon, it would be impossible for the United States and the UK not to come in. I mean, we'd have to. If we don't respond to Russia, even a tactical nuclear weapon, which seems kind of harmless, then China, Pakistan, Iran, North Korea will go, huh, so I can threaten a nuclear weapon and the U.S. is not going to do anything about it. So this has serious repercussions if my estimate is correct. So they'll have to respond. Now, it does not have to be a nuclear response. In fact, I would say more likely it would not be a nuclear response. I'm sure that the President of the United States will be talking with the Prime Minister, with the Bundeskanzler, with the President of France, with other leaders, saying, and in fact, they probably are. I'm sure this will be a topic at the G7 and at the NATO summit in Madrid here at the end of the month. Talk what are the options, what are the costs, what are the risks. And I do have a lot of German friends say, oh, Hodges, you talk big about nuclear weapons because you don't care. It's America. I said, I live in Frankfurt. And there are about 100,000 U.S. Army and Air Force in Europe today, plus hundreds of thousands of Americans that live and work in Europe as well. So don't tell me that Americans don't care about it, that it doesn't affect us somehow. Then that's absolutely not true. And America's prosperity, by the way, is 100% tied not to China, but to Europe. Our prosperity depends on European prosperity. So we're never going to pivot away or turn our back. We may disagree on a lot of stuff, but our prosperity depends on Europe being prosperous. So I think that the United States would have to step in somehow, some way. And I imagine that the Joint Staff and the Pentagon is come up with a list of options for the president and says, if the Russians do this, this, or this, or this, we have these 10 options, Mr. President, that range from completely obliterating them to destroying the place that launched whatever the weapon is. Or maybe we use 5 days of F-35s nonstop to destroy the Black Sea Fleet or destroy Russian ground forces inside Ukraine. But critical to this, of course, would be communication to the Kremlin. We have no interest in going inside Russia at all. That's not what we're after. This is about Ukraine. So that's how I think it possibly plays out. But I do have really smart people say, wait a second. The chance of him using a nuclear weapon, there might be many countries in the alliance who say, I'm out. That's it. I didn't sign up for this. That'd be quite a disappointment, but I mean, that's a possibility also. So what Germany does, at the end of the day, for me, is the most important thing. Germany is America's most important ally. Not always our favorite, but it's our most important. And sometimes people say, oh, I thought UK was your special ally. They are special. Germany's important. All right? I mean, really. It's the moral authority that Germany has accumulated over the last 75 years, that you're in danger of losing, by the way, by lack of action. Obviously, your geography is important for the United States. The access Germany gives us with Ramstein and Grafenwehr and Wiesbaden and Stuttgart and Kaiserslautern and all of that is extremely important for the United States. They're not here to guard Germans. In fact, we have Germans guarding all of these bases, ironically. This is a platform for us to do what we have to do in Africa and the Middle East, as well as all of Europe. The economic power that you have, obviously, is critical for us, but especially because you're the leader inside the European Union. And most of Europe will follow what Germany says. And that's why you keep hearing Americans say, we need Germans to lead. Germans to lead. I can't explain why there's so much reluctance. And I welcome challenges on this, but I think you don't know what you want to be. I mean, there are so many cross currents inside Germany that you're not sure what your role in the world should be. I think some Germans you don't trust yourself. Like, we know what happened last time, and so we're not sure. I think after 75 years post-war, if Germany doesn't lead inside Europe, who is going to do it? I mean, who is going to do it? And so this is what, I think that's what this is about. So the president took a lot of political risk over a year ago to try and strengthen the relationship with our German ally. And so he has very high expectations, as you can probably imagine. Okay, so there's a sort of an optimistic view of the potential outcome with a big, gigantic caveat. And Germany's right in the middle of that caveat. And I am happy to be challenged or take questions on this. And I'm very grateful for the privilege of some of your time tonight.